in high definition from KGMB and KHNL. This is your source for breaking news. Hawaii News Now at 5.
Breaking news right now at 5. A mid-air scare for passengers aboard an American Airlines flight bound for Honolulu.
So I was just laying there sleeping. I get up, hear a noise, and everybody's like kind of freaking out.
Halfway through the flight, a man wraps a blanket around his head and tries to storm the cockpit.
I have exclusive details tonight about the Turkish national who created a separate security scare in Los Angeles just moments before this flight took off.
Plus, the struggle inside the plane to keep everyone safe.
They found some duct tape, and I think they went back there with pillows and blankets, tape him to his chair.
Tonight, we talked to passengers about what they saw and the team of female flight attendants that barricaded the suspect.
So angels were watching out for us.
And breaking news, a live look right now at the Honolulu International Airport, where hours ago military fighter jets scrambled to help land a flight from Los Angeles after an unruly passenger interfered with the flight crew.
Only Hawaii News Now was next to the runway when the American Airlines plane landed this morning. FBI agents rushed on board to arrest a Turkish national suspected of trying to breach the cockpit midair.
We have team coverage on this breaking news story. Our Allison Blair has reaction from passengers who were on the flight.
But we begin with Chief Investigative Reporter Lynn Kawano. She broke this story online and has more exclusive details about the suspect. Lynn?
Sean and Steph, the man remains in FBI custody and will be held at the Federal Detention Center here at the airport. Now, sources say he was in the United States on visas, which have now been canceled by the State Department after he allegedly tried to get to the cockpit of the American Airlines flight. Escorted by military F-22 Raptors, American Airlines Flight 31 landed in Honolulu just after 11:30 this morning. The FBI, sheriff's deputies, and Honolulu police were all waiting and surrounded the stairway. A few minutes later, agents and deputies boarded the plane to take Anel Tuvank Uskanel, a 25-year-old Turkish national, into custody. Law enforcement sources confirm he was in the U.S. on tourist and student visas, which the State Department has now canceled after Uskanel allegedly wrapped a blanket around his head and tried to get to the cockpit door while the plane was still in the air between Los Angeles and Honolulu.
About 3 hours before we got here, I saw a panicked look on the flight attendant's face, and she rushed the car to the entrance to first class.
The flight attendant kept him from getting to the cockpit door by wedging the beverage cart between Uskanel and the door. Sources say he got the attention of security even before boarding the flight in Los Angeles. In the terminal, he opened a secure airport door to the tarmac, setting off alarms. Airport police cited him for trespassing and admit that he was intoxicated, but he was released to board his flight to Honolulu anyway.
When we were boarding in LA, I heard the flight attendants talking about this guy had already created an incident.
Crew members and passengers took him down and made sure Uskanel couldn't try again, using duct tape, pillows, and blankets to secure him to his seat. Bomb-sniffing dogs were brought in after the plane landed to make sure there were no devices on board. Now, at minimum, he faces felony charges of interfering with a flight crew, and that carries a penalty of 10 years. Reporting live, I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
And Lynn, you mentioned that he was in the United States on visas. Any idea what he was planning on doing in Hawaii?
Steph, he had 2 visas. He had a tourist visa and he had a student visa. Now, I'm told that he was attending school in Santa Monica, the Michelle Danner Acting Studio. They confirmed to me this afternoon that he was a student up until last week. The woman who answered the phone tells me she didn't know he was coming to Hawaii, so he is done with school and it's unclear why he was coming here. Steph?
All right, thank you very much. Lynn Kawano reporting live for us from the Honolulu airport.
And many of the 181 passengers on Flight 31 described seeing an incident that seemed to be building up since the flight began. Our Allison Blair is live at the airport to continue our team coverage. Allison?
Yeah, Sean, witnesses say they saw that man try to sit in first class when he first got on the plane. A flight attendant had to actually tell him to move to his assigned seat. Now, once he was there, the person sitting in front of me told me they could hear him mumbling before he took what looked to be a blanket, wrapped it around his head, and made his way to the front of the plane. Just after the plane safely touched down at Honolulu Airport, a passenger captured this video of FBI agents detaining the man witnesses say tried to storm the cockpit of American Airlines Flight 31. Onlookers say there was no struggle after he was stopped, but his behavior leading up to the incident was anything but normal.
He was screaming and talking to himself, and then he walked up to the front with a blanket on his head.
Witnesses say he was silent as he walked towards the front of the plane. The flight crew immediately noticed what was happening.
They're like, can somebody please help? Can somebody please help?
Passengers say a flight attendant used a beverage cart to block the aisle, preventing the man from entering the first-class cabin. Leela Renzen stood with her to help hold back the suspect.
So he had wedged in, and he's pushing, but then she says, "You're not coming in here." By then, a bunch of guys grabbed him. And I was asking them if, what else they could do, and they found some duct tape. And I think they went back with pillows and blankets just to tape him to his chair and keep him subdued till they got here.
Now, witnesses say it was definitely a group effort to stop this man. Besides that flight crew, several passengers stood guard over the man until the plane safely landed.
Ooh, what an ordeal. And Allison, what happened with the passengers after the suspect was escorted off the plane?
Well, Sean, they were let off a few at a time. Each passenger was screened using a dog. They were then interviewed about what they saw. Late this afternoon, they were finally able to get their luggage.
All right, Allison Blair reporting live from Honolulu International Airport. Allison, thank you.
We first broke this story earlier today on the Hawaii News Now news app, and we will continue to bring you new video and details of this developing story throughout the day. And be sure to head to hawaiinewsnow.com for extended videos of the midair scare. And if you don't have it yet, download the Hawaii News Now mobile app for breaking news updates 24/7. Just go to your mobile app store and search for Hawaii News Now.
And we have much more news to get to tonight, including a critical crash. Witnesses describe the moment a car plunged off the third level of a parking garage near Chinatown.
And a new school superintendent is named, the deciding factor in the BOE's pick. But first, here's Guy Hoggy with a quick check of our weather now. Guy.
That's right, Steph. The light winds help produce some spotty downpours across the state. Now, coming up, we'll check the radar and we'll see if the humid conditions will continue this weekend. Plus, a big swell is shaping up. I'll tell you when to expect some serious surf. For now, let's check on traffic. Danielle, what's going on out there?
Those spotty downpours you're talking about impacted the traffic this afternoon on the H1 freeway on the right. That's westbound traffic coming toward you eastbound, and it's just been raining this afternoon with accidents on the windward side on the Pali as well as the H3 cleared now, but traffic is moving very slowly. You can see here on the H1 up on the viaduct from the very Cocoa Head end. With the rain and a couple of stalled vehicles earlier, it backed us up. If you're coming into Honolulu, Waikiki bound for graduation parties, we've got heavy traffic as you get into Waikiki. Not bad on Nimitz, but slows as you get downtown. From the City and County of Honolulu's Traffic Management Center, I'm Danielle Tucker with Crater 96.3 for Hawaii News Now, and you're watching Hawaii News Now at 5. We'll be back with more news right after this.
Have a story idea, news tip, or great photo you want to share with Hawaii News Now? Post it to our Facebook page or email news@hawaiinewsnow.com.
Thank you very much, Jen. And we have an update on the breaking news story we've been following this evening.
That's right. Joe Betaver is at Honolulu International Airport, where the FBI giving an update right now on their investigation. Let's listen in.
An off-duty Los Angeles police officer and other passengers stood by ready to assist if necessary. One passenger was detained. Flight 31 landed without further incident. Our first concern, of course, is for the safety of the passengers and the flight crew, and I'm able to report that there were no injuries aboard Flight 31. The interviews have confirmed that the cockpit was not breached prior to previous reports. FBI agents and sheriff deputies responded to Honolulu International Airport prior to the arrival of the plane, and when it landed, subject was taken into custody. Subject's name is Anil Tuvanik Uskanli. He's a Turkish national, born in 1991. We're currently preparing a complaint for interference with a flight crew. In an abundance of caution, the subject was taken for a medical evaluation. I expect he will be turned over to the custody of the FDC. It's important for us to note that we are not aware of any other threats to American Airlines or any other aircraft. The plane has been cleared and returned to American Airlines. This response was a coordinated and cooperative effort among the FBI, Sheriff's Department, TSA, HPD, United States Air Force EOD, and American Airlines. I'll take a few of your questions, but I'm sure you can understand this is an ongoing investigation. We have some interviews to conduct, further evidence to review.
Special Agent, was an explosive found on board?
No explosives were found on board. EOD techs and Special Agent bomb technicians cleared the subject's possessions and the airplane.
Can you clarify what happened prior to him boarding the airplane? I know he wasn't deemed drunk in public, so he was able to board the flight, but what happened in LAX beforehand?
He was issued a citation at LAX before boarding by the LAX Police Department. I would refer you to them for comment on the citation.
Special Agent, you said that he did not reach the cockpit, but did he attempt to reach the cockpit door?
He was in the aisleway of the plane. It's unclear what his motivation was.
Did the suspect try to open an exit door at all?
I don't have any reports of that. Again, the information is still coming in. Interviews are ongoing.
So you are still interviewing passengers at this time?
The interviews of passengers, I believe, are complete at this point. The flight crew's been released, but the investigation is ongoing.
When will he be moved to FDC?
I don't know the exact status of his transport to FDC.
Do you know what his intention was coming to Honolulu?
We don't have any information about his intent at this time. We're going to let the investigation unfold, and if there's further information that we need to provide to you, we'll do it at that time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there you heard it, the FBI giving us an update on that mid-flight scare on American Airlines. A 25-year-old passenger attempted to break into the cockpit on a flight that left LAX heading for Honolulu. It landed at around 11:30. He says that passengers were successful in subduing him, even using duct tape to keep him to his seat.
That's right. A Turkish national now about to go medical evaluations and will eventually be held at the Federal Detention Center. That is the latest from Honolulu International Airport. On this, we'll have much more coming up at 6 o'clock this evening on KGMB.
Right now at 6, a man duct taped to his seat after a mid-air takedown on a flight to Hawaii.
Flight attendants were really heroic. I mean, they really did a phenomenal job.
Also, a contraband bust at Hawaii's largest jail in a module holding 2 high-profile suspects.
A woman is badly hurt in a parking lot plunge in Chinatown.
Well, I came to do Broadway musicals.
And Bette Midler recalls her first taste of showbiz right here on Oahu.
In high definition, from KGMB, this is your source for breaking news. Hawaii News Now at 6.
So he had it wedged in, and he's pushing, but then she says, "You're not coming in here."
An in-flight emergency on a flight to Hawaii. Tonight, new details on the man arrested before takeoff in Los Angeles and then again afterwards at the Honolulu airport.
Now, the man from Turkey is named Anil Tuvanik Uskanli. He's accused of rushing the cockpit on an American Airlines flight to Honolulu.
We start with new information from the FBI just in moments ago.
In an abundance of caution, the subject was taken for a medical evaluation. I expect he will be turned over to the custody of the FDC. It's important for us to note that we are not aware of any other threats to American Airlines or any other aircraft.
Much more now. One touch flight attendant is credited with holding the man back as he tried to push into first class in that section.
We have team coverage tonight, starting with our chief investigative reporter, Lynn Kawano, who broke the story online. Lynn.
Keahi, the 25-year-old man, is a Turkish national. Sources tell me he had two visas, a student visa and a tourist visa, and both have now been canceled by the State Department after he allegedly tried to breach into the first-class area, into the cockpit, on a flight from LA to Honolulu. Escorted by FBI agents and sheriff's deputies, Anel Tovank Uskanel was walked down the stairs from an American Airlines Airbus about 11:30 this morning after allegedly trying to get into the cockpit of Flight 31 between Los Angeles and Honolulu.
I look up and my man has a blanket over his head, and they're like, "Can somebody please help? Can somebody please help?" I thought he was tripping on at first, but I guess he rushed the cockpit.
A flight attendant kept the 25-year-old from reaching the cockpit door, and passengers, including an off-duty police officer, were able to take Uskanel down, then duct tape him to his seat for the remainder of the flight. But even before Uskanel left LA, he was cited by police at LAX for breaching a secure door to the tarmac. He was suspected of being intoxicated, but was allowed to catch the flight to Honolulu anyway. Sources tell me Uskanel's student visa was for a school in Santa Monica, the Michelle Danner Acting Studio. Now, the woman who answered the phone there confirms to me that he was a student up until last week. She did say, though, that she did not know why he left or why he was coming to Hawaii. Now, at minimum, he faces felony charges of interfering with a flight crew. The penalty for that is 10 years. Reporting live, I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
Thanks a lot, Lynn. Well, our team coverage continues with Allison Blair. She spoke to passengers about what they saw. Allison, there were red flags from before the time they took off.
Yeah, Mahia, witnesses say the man tried to sit in the first-class cabin and actually had it told to be moved to his assigned seat by one of the flight attendants. Once he got there, passengers who were sitting around him told me that they could hear him mumbling to himself before later in the flight wrapping what looked to be a towel around his head and headed to the front of the cabin.
I saw this guy walking down the hallway with a towel in his head, and there were people, like the flight attendants, following him.
They're like, "Can somebody please help? Can somebody please help?"
Witnesses say he was silent as he walked towards the front of the plane.
He wasn't really saying anything, just had his head down with the towel over. I think so no one could really see him.
Passengers say a flight attendant used a beverage cart to block the aisle, preventing the man from entering the first-class cabin.
And then I stood behind her, and she says, "You're not coming in here." And he had a blanket over his head, and he was pushing against the cart. And then by then, a bunch of guys grabbed him.
Witnesses say flight attendants used duct tape to subdue the man, while other passengers stood guard over him until the flight landed.
It was amazed me how calm everybody stayed, and because we didn't hear anything going on back there, nobody screaming or anything.
Now, after the suspect was taken off the plane, passengers were taken off a few at a time. They were each screened using dogs before being interviewed about what they saw. Late this afternoon, they were finally able to pick up their luggage. We're live tonight at the Honolulu International Airport. Allison Blair, Hawaii News Now.
Quite a story, Allison. Thank you. Be sure to stay with Hawaii News Now for the very latest on this developing story. We'll have continuing team coverage throughout the night. You can get the very latest on this on air and online at hawaiinewsnow.com.
New at 6, 2 inmates awaiting trial in a high-profile murder case may have had access to drugs and a cell phone behind bars. They were in a unit at OCCC where the contraband was seized last night, and the suspected smuggler is a jail guard. Our Ashley Nagaoka joins us with more. Ash.
Thanks, Keahi. Sources say last night's contraband shakedown at OCCC happened where two men suspected in the Christmas Day shooting at Ala Moana Shopping Center are being held. The State Department of Public Safety says these sweeps are part of its efforts to prevent contraband from entering facilities. But some say more needs to be done to hold guards accountable.
Sources say a corrections officer at Oahu Community Correctional Center was trying to get the drugs and cell phone into a housing unit where murder suspect Daehan Moon and alleged accomplice Lance Bermudez are staying. Moon is charged with fatally shooting 20-year-old Stevie Feliciano on Christmas Day in a parking structure at Ala Moana Center. Following a manhunt, Bermudez was arrested and charged for threatening a witness to the shooting. The state's public safety department would only confirm that contraband was seized Thursday night, but officials would not say what was recovered, from where, or from whom because of an ongoing investigation. A defense attorney who has represented many detainees says drug smuggling by guards and staff is all too common.
I had one client who was actually bribing the guards at Halaba to bring in the drugs to him, and he tested dirty on all of his drug tests, and nothing was done.
The department says contraband searches are routine at all of its facilities, and that everyone who enters OCCC must walk through security detection machines, even corrections officers and staff. It says it has the authority to conduct hands-on searches of staff and their belongings, but only when there is reasonable suspicion.
It's just lazy. I mean, it's a very small environment, and how hard is it to control when it's your own employees?
If we are serious about cracking down on contraband that staff bring in, the most effective way of doing it is to conduct random, unannounced searches using deputy sheriff teams and using drug-sniffing dogs.
Ashley Nagaoka, Hawaii News Now.
And now new video shows 3 men accused of a home invasion at a Punch Bowl apartment Wednesday morning. They were wearing HPD and police union shirts when they walked into the Aleohale complex on Kamamalu Avenue. Inside, police say 3 victims were bound and robbed, and one of them was sexually assaulted. If you recognize the suspects or have any tips, call 955-8300. An elderly woman was critically hurt today after driving her SUV off the 3rd floor of the parking garage at Kukui Tower in Chinatown. HFD got the call at about 1:30. The Mercedes crashed through a concrete wall and appears to have landed on its rear in the courtyard below. We're told the victim, in her 70s, is a resident there.
New at 6, after one of the nation's largest hepatitis A outbreaks in 2 decades, almost all of the infected patients suing Genki Sushi have settled. Hawaii News Now has learned 46 out of 53 of the suits have been settled so far, and mediation is continuing, according to the patient's attorney. No word on the amounts. Last year, nearly 300 people were infected with Hep A. The outbreak was linked back to tainted scallops from the Philippines.
Just ahead, Hawaii's next school superintendent is announced. Her reaction on getting the job, and what's next?
Also, a new assessment of Hawaii's economy. What are the experts concerned about?
There's a lot of pressure on him too, especially after Tua.
And who's replacing Tua Tagovailoa as quarterback of Hawaii's top high school football team? A bit later on KGMB. First, a check of the weather. Here's Guy with details.
That's right, light variable winds took over today with elevated humidity levels and spotty downpours. Coming up, we'll see how long these conditions will linger, and we'll check on the active surf situation. We'll be right back.